Well, in a recent interview with Eric Metaxas, Reverend Franklin Graham responded to a question that Eric asked about opposition to Donald Trump and said it's almost demonic. It's almost a demonic force. And then when Eric pressed things, Reverend Graham agreed it's a spiritual battle. So is all opposition to Donald Trump demonic? Are the impeachment hearings demonic? Naturally, this has gotten quite a response from secular media, and I can understand why. For example, Washington Post, here's the headline. It asks this question: who but a demon could impeach God's chosen one? This is Dana Milbank, and he rightly notes, if politics is a spiritual battle between God and demons from hell, who cares what statistics from the Commerce Department say, or what any of the impeachment witnesses say? He says this on Fox News on Sunday. Energy Secretary Rick Perry reported that he told Trump he was God's choice. I said, Mr. President, I know there are people that say you said you were the chosen one, and I said you were. This led to Milbank's question: who but a demon could vote to impeach God's chosen one? All right, so again, I understand these sentiments, and I understand how this sounds to the watching world, especially to the left, especially to hostile media, especially to those who have real problems with Donald Trump. You're saying, oh, so we're of the devil if we differ with Donald Trump? Over at The Atlantic, look at this headline. It says this. This is Peter Werner writing. Are Trump's critics demonically possessed? Two of the president's prominent evangelical supporters are literally demonizing his opponents. And the article continues, it isn't enough for Franklin Graham and Eric Metaxas, two prominent figures within the American evangelical movement, to lavish praise on President Donald Trump. They have now decided they must try to demonize his critics. Literally. Yeah. So how does it sound? If you differ with the president, if you're trying to remove the president, if you oppose the president, you are of the devil. What you're doing is demonic because God put him in office, because God raised him up. How does it sound? Is it right for us to paint things in those terms? Here, one more example. New York Magazine. The headline reads, Christian right leaders suggest Trump critics are possessed by demons. And here's what Ed Kilgore writes. In evangelical speak, spiritual battle or spiritual warfare means a test of power between God and Satan or his demonic minions, with human souls and the fate of all creation in the balance. Describing one's opponents as on the wrong side of a spiritual battle is simultaneously an expression of the most extreme hatred available to a Christian and a rationalization for it on grounds that the object of demon possession is not entirely responsible for becoming the devil's workshop. It's a variation on the old conservative Christian dodge of hating the sin but not the sinner when it comes to, say, being gay. And he adds that Graham and Metaxas, quote, are suggesting that the moral and spiritual superiority, nay, necessity of Trump and his party are so resplendently obvious that only a turn to the darkest side imaginable can explain it. So again, I understand how this sounds. And I understand why these columnists are reacting as they are. And on a certain level, I don't blame them. If you were, say, a Democrat and you were a Christian and you were for Barack Obama and you saw conservative evangelicals opposing him and you said that's demonic, yeah, how would that sound to us? Or Obama is the chosen one. How did that sound to us? We took real issue with it. So I fully understand these sentiments. And you can even ask the question, well, are you saying all opposition to the Republican Party is of the devil? Are you saying that the Republican Party is God's party and the Democrat Party is of the devil? Someone might say, well, look at their platforms. Look at what they stand for. Look at how radical the Democrat Party's become, and look at the values the Republican Party is standing for, and you tell me who's on God's side and who's on the devil's side. Okay, I understand that argument as well. But actually, Metaxas and Graham were not specifically talking about the Republican Party, but President Trump. So here are the two sides to it as I see it. On the one hand, we, all followers of Jesus, all people of conscience, regardless of faith or not, we need to pursue truth and righteousness, all right? That means that if we differ with the president, we differ with the president. That means if we take issue with his policies, we take issue with his policies. That means if we're offended by certain things he says and does, so be it. That means if we feel he's playing fast and loose with the truth, we object to it. That means if we feel a decision is reckless, we go on record accordingly. That means when it's time to vote, that we vote our conscience, not vote thinking, well, am I opposing God's plan here, or am I siding with the devil here? We vote based on information we have, and we vote our conscience. At the same time, I fully understand what Eric Metaxas and Reverend Graham were saying. I fully understand it. There has been an attempt to remove President Trump since before he was even sworn in. There has been a concerted effort to remove him. And I understand some of the opposition is because of his personality, and he's a street fighter and no holds barred, and he's gonna go after people the way he goes after people. It's gonna provoke more opposition. I understand that, and some take issue with his recklessness or his policies or his exaggerations or lies. I understand all that perfectly, clearly, no problem there. At the same time, I recognize that there is opposition to the president that I personally categorize as demonic, as spiritual battle. I look at the witches gathering together to hex the president. Is that demonic or what? I look at the shout your abortion women literally scratching at the doors of the Supreme Court with anguish and fury during the Kavanaugh hearings. Is that demonic or what? I look at the level of intense hatred in the women's march, calling for blowing up the White House or holding up a decapitated picture or the decapitated image of the president. And this is some of the venom. Yeah, I look at that as demonic. And ultimately, if let the truth come forth, if the impeachment hearings are based on misinformation or exaggeration or lies, spread by a dishonest media and pushed by partisan politics, with the goal being to unseat a duly elected president who is standing for many causes that I believe are important and right, then yes, that would be demonic, as is an attempt to overthrow an authority placed by God through a due election process. So I understand the negative reactions to what they were saying. And I encourage everyone to do what's right and not try to analyze, is this demonic? Is this from God? Do what's right, and you'll be on God's side. Stand for truth and righteousness and justice, and you'll be on God's side, because those are the values he stands for. Stand for compassion, stand for what is helpful and best for a society in the long term in God's side, and you will be on God's side. And at the same time, recognize that, yes, there is certainly a demonic attempt to take the president down. I've talked about it in Jezebel's War with America, and I stand behind it.